All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of BlockFi Live. I'm really excited about the guests that we have with us today. Their product is one of my favorite products in crypto, of course, second to BlockFi's, but it's an incredible product. And we've got Alex Adelman with us. He's the founder and CEO. The company is Lolli. Alex, thanks so much for coming on the show and chatting with us today, man.
Thanks for having me, and the feelings are definitely mutual. Love what you guys are doing over at BlockFi.
Awesome. So before we get into all the awesome stuff that Lolli does and why everybody should be using it, tell us about yourself. What's your personal background? And start as early as you want. You can tell us where you grew up if you want to.
Yeah, so I grew up born and raised in North Carolina. I really got my start in tech, making video games. I don't know if you remember like the sort of the game maker system that used to exist, and I wish it still existed today, but it's kind of like you could just create video games from scratch, and it sort of taught you how to do programming almost accidentally. If you like video games, you kind of chose to either create them and or play them, and so yeah, I got super into that for several years, and then I realized that my friends would only buy so many video games for $1, and so I realized I could make more money and probably have more impact making websites for friends, dads, and different companies around Charlotte. So I ended up making websites, and then started to graduate to more like back-end platforms, and then started to build things that I couldn't build. So started to build like bigger teams, and I would just recruit everywhere around the world to go build different projects. And then going into college, I started studying economics and got really fascinated with both micro and macro, but specifically microfinance and the microfinance initiatives that were going on in Bangladesh
Mhm.
through the Grameen Bank. So I started studying that and got really interested in this idea of democratizing the world through commerce. How do you give everyone in the world equal opportunity through technology? And so sort of taking my background in technology coupled with my newly found interest in economics and experience in building businesses, and how could I merge all of those together to create the largest impact that I possibly could. So after about 3 or 4 years of studying economics, I started a concept on this idea of what does that application look like in technology. And so I started to build my last company, which was called Cosmic. And we created this e-commerce gateway that let any merchant sell their products anywhere and consumers buy products anywhere. Basically, we were one of the creators of the buy button. So built an incredible team that most of them are still with us today with Lolli. And we built an incredible team over those few years. We ended up getting acquired by our biggest customer to come and empower 1.2 billion in retail revenue. That was it was a really exciting work. I think you and I can probably relate on this, but the first 3 years were like really rough. A lot of hard work, bootstrapping, and no real success for several years. So talk about that another time. But basically had some success when merchants started to realize the value of the democratization of commerce, and then everybody wanted our technology. Meanwhile, while I was building Cosmic, I remember going to a bar after I was like crashing on couches in New York, selling all these merchants, and I got this. I bumped into this guy. I don't know if you know Ryan Shea, but I had bumped into Ryan Shea, and he had like just learned about Bitcoin, and he was obsessed. And
All
so
right.
he's talking all of that.
Where are we in time now? Like, do you remember what
We're
year?
like 2013, 2014.
Yep.
Yeah. So he was like obsessed at this point, and he was like telling me all about it. And we were, I mean, everything I had been building at that moment, not knowing about Bitcoin, was the democratization of commerce. So it was my entire thesis. It was like, how do we connect the entire world through technology? And then I hear about this currency that had already had a fair amount of traction by 2013 and had already created this currency that let everybody in the entire world own it, this asset that anyone in the entire world could own. And that really fascinated me. So I went back and like started a Slack channel with my team, or I guess it was HipChat at the time. And we just kept in touch with like Bitcoin over the years. we actually introduced it to a lot of our merchants. And a lot of the merchants were not interested. We were introducing it as a payment rail.
Yep.
And so a lot of merchants at that point weren't interested in Bitcoin for payments because of the volatility, which totally made sense. But it gave me some understanding of what merchants were optimizing for, what they were interested in. And it let us really understand, I think, Bitcoin and where it was going to be pervasive in society. And sure, we've seen some successes with like, let's see, what are the, like BitPay, maybe Coinbase Commerce is starting to get some traction. But really, I don't think like the adoption of Bitcoin didn't start with payments as I think people initially thought it would. So we kind of saw the early days of that. Fast forward a little bit, we're a year into the acquisition, and a bigger company comes along called Ebates, which is now everyone knows as Rakuten. And Ebates, being the biggest cashback provider in the US, came along and bought Cosmic away from PopSugar. So got to see two very unique acquisitions, got to learn a lot about the cashback space, probably too much about it. And yeah, I just really like fell in love with the Rakuten business. I thought it was an incredible way to give people savings, help people earn as much money as possible, and really understand that customer that's like middle America, wants to, is sort of the sons and daughters of the coupon clipper generation. They wanted like a digital way to save money, and
Yeah.
Ebates created that way of saving money. And so yeah, I just really became fascinated with that business. And honestly, to that point, the two most rabid customers, the two most rabid users I had ever met were like Rakuten users and Bitcoiners. And so I was like, those two things like really resonated in my head. And so when we parted ways with Rakuten, and started to think about what we wanted to build next, we got the band back together, and we're like, it just made so much sense to build cash back for Bitcoin as a way to distribute Bitcoin to people and teach people, I think more importantly, teach people about the power of Bitcoin and this new future of digital assets.
Yeah. So, okay, let's catch up on where we are in time. So where are we in time now? You leave, you spin out, your time ends at Rakuten, and you're thinking about what you want to do next. What year are we at now? Is that like 2016?
2000, late 2017, actually probably early 2018.
Early 2018.
Yeah, late
Um,
late 17 to early 18.
and
Sort
had
of
you
took a sabbatical. Yeah.
had you bought any Bitcoin along the way? Were you like personally investing in Bitcoin at this point, or?
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have much liquidity I was a very I was a poor founder. Like I dumped all my money into building my last company, and thankfully it paid off. But when I learned about Bitcoin, I believe I bought one Bitcoin, and so yeah, I know it's bad OPSEC, but like that's not worth that much. Like I wish, I wish I bought more. But no, I kind of like, I always loved it for the principles of it.
Yep.
And I didn't really like, I think my personal story is like, I didn't need that much Bitcoin to keep in touch with it. Like
Right.
to care, like I bought a very small amount of Bitcoin. And it was a lot relative to, what I had. And honestly, I just was so interested in the underlying technology and what it had the ability to do. And I'm amazed with, what it's done, but I also am amazed and excited for the future that I think it will have in the future,
Yeah.
or, and the impact it will have to society. So yeah, that was, I guess, yeah, 2017, I started to get like back, more deeper into like the underlying technology, started to look at like what was going on with, second layer networks and some of the early research around that. Yeah. And felt like, there were so many smart people that were building on Bitcoin Core, and that was just like, not my expertise. So I felt like my place in this whole ecosystem was to make Bitcoin more accessible to everybody, and to figure out that part of the equation. So yeah, we started building Lolli with the same team as the last company,
Hmm.
and we launched it, and we reached out to all of our merchant partners that we had met over the years. And I was a little surprised. Like we started as sort of a experiment, just a project to see if this thing would work. I bring it to all of our merchants that I just made a list of all the merchants I had worked with over the years. And it was just like conversation after conversation was like, so much different than when I had pitched them the first time on Bitcoin payments. And they really understood the value that a lot of them had already known about Bitcoin, and they love the value of Bitcoin as rewards as opposed to Bitcoin as payment rail, because they didn't have any risk. They were just attracting a new user base. The end customer could get what they want. The merchant didn't have to take on any risk. I mean, everybody wins with the cashback model. So yeah, they were happy to partner. And today we have just over 950 partners to date that we've been really excited about and have done a lot of good for our users.
So starting at square one, in case there's anyone watching this who isn't familiar with Lolli's product yet, give us just a simple overview of the value proposition, starting for a consumer, but then also you already touched on this a little bit for the merchants that are becoming part of the platform as well. How does it work?
Yeah.
Why would I do it? How does it work?
Yeah, so Lolli is a Bitcoin rewards platform. It lets anyone sign up, and within 30 seconds, you can start earning free Bitcoin and a significant amount of Bitcoin, doing something that you already would have done, which is shop. So we kind of took this belief that there's a lot of pieces of the ecosystem that have to play out for Bitcoin to be a more pervasive currency and store value and medium of exchange. You need the piece on the investment side, which is, I think what you guys are doing such an amazing job at. You need the underlying infrastructure. You need Bitcoin Core. You need Lightning Network. But what is the piece that we think that's going to take Bitcoin to the next 100 million people, the next hopefully billion people? I think you need to take something that somebody already does. Like, most people are not going to turn into investors overnight. There's a set group of people that would consider themselves investors in like, that are on Robinhood, that are on BlockFi, that are going on, Cash App to go buy stocks and cryptocurrencies. I think that is like probably less than 0.5% of the world would consider themselves investors. That is a very important part of the world, but it's less than 0.5%. Everybody else, how do you get Bitcoin to the masses to have this hyper Bitcoinization to create a new store of value, a global store of value? I think in order to do that, you have to take something like shopping that every single person in the entire world does in some capacity, and you have to give them a better way to transact. And so to start, let's give them a better reward system. Let's give them Bitcoin that lets you, like, hypothetically earn more money over time. And then we can let Bitcoin do the rest of the work and prove out that value. So, just early case study. I mean, when we launched, Bitcoin was at 3,800, which arguably could not have been a better time to launch in hindsight, but you never know, like, you never really predict the market.
Yeah.
But we launched when Bitcoin was 3,800. Now we know Bitcoin is 9K. And so our users have effectively, our early users have effectively 2 to 3x their rewards. So immediately,
you were getting 5% cash back as an early user on one of Lolli's merchants. It's actually, because of the price increase, it's become 15% cash back, which is a huge number.
It's huge. So when you look at us, like, I look at like our real competitors being Rakuten and the cashback companies out there. And when really what consumers are trying to decide is, what do I want to earn? Do I want to earn points, cash, or in this case, Bitcoin? And we're trying to, tell the world that Bitcoin is the best asset that you can earn as a reward, with the future of actually using that asset because it has real value, and you can transact seamlessly. You can transact more efficiently, lower cost. And so this is part of our long-term effort of transitioning the world into a better currency that connects the entire world through commerce.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's super user-friendly. We didn't talk about this before the show, so this is a bit of a curveball for Alex, but I have a Lolli account. I've been a long-time Lolli user. Would you be okay if I just shared my screen for a second and pull up the Lolli interface, Alex?
I'd love that. Yeah. As long as you don't mind with OPSEC, that sounds great.
I've also never done this on a Zoom recording before, so hopefully it's a good view.
Oh, nice stacks. Love it.
We'll see if it records. So there's a couple of things here, and Alex, feel free to jump in, but you've got this plugin where anytime I'm moving around the internet and shopping, I'll show up on a website, and then I'll just get a little notification right here that Lolli cash back has been activated. And I'm like, oh, awesome. It's effortless. And then you're in your account and I can like, I don't know, what's one of the merchants that you're a big fan of or that came on recently that we could search for here?
I love Everlane, and then Bulletproof Coffee is one of my most recent obsessions.
All right, Everlane, 9% Bitcoin back. So you click on the link, you go shop on whatever merchant you're going to go shop on. And then after you complete the purchase on that website, within, a week or so, you go back into your Lolli account and your balance just grows. And I cash out my Bitcoin balance a lot. So I've made way more than $45. And now looking at this, I'm realizing I should probably cash out again, but that's super smooth as well. So it's just really friendly. And like, I have told so many people about Lolli as a way to get Bitcoin for the first time because it's also something that's familiar to people. I mean, you mentioned like what are some of the audience sizes from the biggest players in the reward space now, the Rakutens or whatever, and then maybe talk a little bit about what y'all are seeing in terms of adoption. Who's becoming a Lolli user? I assume it's growing really rapidly, especially now with everyone at home and only able to shop at Line. But talk to us a little bit about that. How you think about the addressable market from traditional rewards, and then what y'all are seeing as you've gone live with Lolli.
Yeah, so we're seeing, like, I think what we anticipated, which is we have our hardcore Bitcoiners, a lot of maximalists, a lot of people who want, to put fiat in and get Bitcoin out and to maximize their Bitcoin savings, because most places you can't pay with Bitcoin yet. And so people want to transition their fiat into Bitcoin as much as possible. Lolli, I mean, with over 950 partners, I think we do a really good job of really maximizing the both with the major merchants and then long tail. And so we definitely have like the people who are super into Bitcoin. We definitely have sort of people who are into crypto and understand that they can do anything with their Bitcoin. They can move it to ETH. They can move it to EOS or Ripple or whatever you want to do. I'm not, look, your Bitcoin is your Bitcoin. So we let people do whatever they want with it. We are Bitcoin only, and that's very intentional, but we are big believers. If anyone ever asks us, when ETH, when any of these other cryptocurrencies, it's like you can do whatever you want with Bitcoin. That is the beautiful part of it. So yeah, we strongly encourage you guys to own your Bitcoin and do your thing and transfer out and own your keys. The other half of our users, and really it is about half at this point, are brand new to crypto. And this user is I think when people look at Lolli and sometimes feel like your users, for instance, come to Lolli and it's like, it is extremely simple. It is like dead simple, right? And so if you're experienced and you're on BlockFi and you're trading and you're like, hedging bets and, shorting or getting interest, like that user is going to come into Lolli and be like, this is very, very basic. And that's intentional because we are building for two users. And arguably the most important user is the person who's brand new to Bitcoin.
If you can make it
That
simple for
person,
them, then the advanced people, it's going to be super simple for too.
exactly. And we want the advanced people to realize how simple it is so that they can share it with their friends, their family, really anybody. And like, I think that that's what's happening right now. So our organic growth is about 70% of our growth is organic, which just means like people are just sharing it, which initially it was all Bitcoiners that were using Lolli, and now it's starting to transition. We're seeing the shift from Bitcoiners using Lolli to now a way broader audience. And so as we make these like product decisions, we're trying to continue to open it up, to continue to make it feel more like Rakuten, but with a better currency and more efficient currency. And so, yeah, I think that we've done a really good job of that as a team to make it Bitcoin even more accessible over the last 2 years since we launched.
And is it accurate to say in terms of the mechanics underneath the hood, in terms of your system and how this actually works for me to get Bitcoin rewards, that the reward in the transaction for the merchant is denominated in dollars, but then Lolli is converting that dollar denomination into Bitcoin for the user at a certain point in time, or right when the transaction occurs, and thereby creating buying pressure that ultimately flows into the Bitcoin market. Is that?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. Pretty much exactly. So yeah. The net positive for Bitcoin is that we are adding to the transaction. Like we are adding lots of significant amount of transactions, and then we're also adding cost savings for the consumer. One, we work with several top OTCs, so we're getting the best prices for the consumer. And a lot of people don't realize that about our business. We don't advertise it,
Yep.
but we're not making any money off of the trading or anything like that. We are actually giving the best price to the consumer at that value. And then we're buying in bulk too, so that we're not getting hit with exchange fees. So you can actually do extremely low transactions. People can earn $5, $10 in Bitcoin. We're actually going and buying that Bitcoin, and
Yep.
because we're able to pool it, we then can drive the transaction amount down for the average consumer, so you're not getting hit with that cost. So I think a lot of consumers really like that. They're getting as you saw and as you've experienced, you can make a lot of money in Bitcoin. Like we've had like some of our power users have earned well over an entire Bitcoin of just using Lolli like for office supplies, travel, like as they
Yeah.
normally would. And that's, I think, getting really exciting for a lot of people that like, I mean, I remember at Rakuten, like their power users would earn thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It was crazy to watch, like how much you can, like if when you shift your shopping behavior to something like Rakuten, something like Lolli, like it's really amazing how much money you can save.
Yeah. So I think the punchline is not just for yourself, but also for the broader Bitcoin market. Using Lolli is a tremendous net positive, and it's super easy. And one of the, I can't remember where I said this, but one of the things I mentioned is that on a TV show was that you're going to see the success of companies like Lolli start to have a material impact on the Bitcoin market as it grows, and it's kind of like the opposite of mining rewards. So miners get paid to mine Bitcoin. Some Bitcoin is created. Most of the time, in some way, shape, or form, they're selling that Bitcoin. When you have companies like Lolli gaining traction, they're creating the exact opposite pressure on the market, just a regular buying pressure from people shopping and earning their rewards in Bitcoin. And this is a market that's still largely driven by retail. And so if you just enable people to get their first Bitcoin or to earn more Bitcoin than they already have with utilities like this, that can be a very powerful market force over time as it scales.
Yeah, that you bring up something funny. I can't remember which one of our users said this on Twitter, but they were talking about the Lolli flippening when Lolli rewards passed the mining reward, and
Exactly.
I thought that was like a funny. I was like, wow, when we get there, whatever, whether that's in 50, 60 years, or hopefully sooner, I was like that would be, this would be good for Bitcoin.
Well, Ollie's going up, and the mining reward is going down. So it
Yeah,
might happen well ahead of 50 to 60 years.
let's hope.
So what's coming up next? Like, what are you excited about that y'all are working on now in the product pipeline or in terms of partnerships? What do you have on the roadmap?
Yeah, so the thing that we've really been working hard on is the mobile app and then international expansion. So those things go hand in hand. We started with a web-based strategy in the U.S. Very intentionally. It's the highest GMV market. It's significantly higher than mobile, and it's in the U.S. So we felt like we could drive the most value for our merchants and really create this competitive advantage over any other companies that emerge, because we have these deep-seated relationships with these merchants
Yeah.
already, and then we can leverage those relationships to get the best rates. And now we have all of this GMV flowing through the platform and all these rewards and all these users, that now it creates a sort of moat, where I think it would be very tough to replicate what we're doing. And so now that we have that, now we can start to expand to more countries and provide those same retailers that have international reach. We can provide those rewards all over the world. So as we go all over the world, most of the world is not web dominant, it's mobile dominant. So we're working really hard on the mobile launch, and then that will, like a international launch will follow that. So yeah, those are the things that like are keeping us up at night, and and we're working really hard on. And I think I'm personally really excited to just expand international. I think like
Yeah.
the biggest criticism that we've gotten that has put a lot of like good pressure is like, when we post and people are like, win EU, win Australia, win Korea. And you know the feeling of like, I Bitcoin is inherently global. Like, I understand the criticism of being like, well, why isn't Lolli global? Like,
Yeah.
and so my real mission is to like, give Bitcoin to everybody and make it accessible, not just to the US. So I'm trying to get to that future as fast as possible. And yeah, the team's working hard to get there.
That's great. I'm sure you'll get there soon. What about for the broader ecosystem? Is there anything going on related to Bitcoin or crypto more broadly that you're really excited about, or predictions, price or otherwise, that you want to make while we're doing the interview?
Yeah, of course. The project I'm most excited about outside of like Lolli and BlockFi is Lightning. I think that what they're doing is so important in order for Bitcoin to really scale.
Hmm.
Bitcoin Core is good enough. It has served its value to society. It will continue to serve its value. But in order to make Bitcoin more of a medium of exchange and not just a store of value, I think it needs things like Lightning and possibly Liquid as well in order to help it scale.
Yep.
So we're following the project really closely. We're being very methodical in when we actually choose to adopt it. I never want to take the approach of adopting something too early that might inhibit our user experience. And I think that right now Lightning is getting to a point that would make a lot of sense to start at least beta testing and adopting it and thinking about including it into our roadmap. I think the team is one of the smartest teams and just really exciting technology, and I use it personally all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the project I'm most excited about. And then let's see, more broadly, yeah, that's
That's
honestly, I
good.
think like
That's a
where
great
my team and I spend their time. And then also outside of Bitcoin, I know a lot of your users are not just Bitcoiners. Um, I'm really excited about stablecoins.
one. Hmm.
I think the longest on Bitcoin, but I am a huge believer in stablecoins, and I think that they are going to be a very necessary part to get us to this Bitcoin future. So I don't think that we get to the Bitcoin future that all these Bitcoiners, myself included, want if we don't have stablecoins. We need more efficient means of mediums of exchange. We need to have currencies that look like our own currencies. And from my world and where I think the world is most broken is in the taxes, not just from government, but more so the taxes from the banks, the taxes from the credit card companies, the processors, the merchant processors, the acquiring banks. I mean, when you send a transaction, you're paying 5 to 10 people before it gets back to you,
Yeah.
before it gets back to the merchant. And so when you really look at the diagram of processes of like who gets paid, the taxes are like the government's probably the least of your worries at that point with how many people are, you're paying for every transaction. So the thing that I get most excited about is Lightning, because it makes, for low cost transactions for a worldwide currency that, payment systems are inherently broken with. It's almost impossible to send money around the world without incurring significant cost. And then even domestically, so it's extremely expensive to send money to businesses that trust each other, and so we shouldn't need that. And so if stablecoins can help promote lower cost, I think that a lot of people are going to adopt them. I think stablecoins over the next 5 years will be incredibly pervasive, and then over the next 20 years, stablecoins will lead us into this Bitcoin future because a lot of people aren't going to want to, or they're going to realize that they can have something that is controlled by a centralized organization, or they can have something that's completely decentralized, and they're going to make that choice. And I think that the choice is clear for a lot of people, that choice is Bitcoin. But for most people, they're choosing cash every day. Like, cash is king. They want it. They understand it. And it makes sense to them to transact in it.
Yeah. Both great points. I'm very bullish on Lightning and stable coins as well. So we share those views. All right.
What are the
Last,
stable coins you're most excited about?
I like the ones, I'm partial to the ones that are kind of well regulated and domiciled in the US. So USDC, GUSD, PAX, and True USD. I think that reputation and trust is everything in terms of the stablecoin market long term. And at the end of the day, the legal system and the fiduciary and custody system of the U.S. and the strength of the dollar is going to, facilitate someone from kind of that ilk to be, the dominant market share player. So that's why we like them. And they all also make it really super smooth to redeem for dollars in a bank account. So getting in, getting out is low cost and very fast, which is also critically important. Um,
I agree. The on and off ramp is extremely important.
yeah. So last question: where can folks find you? What's Lolli's website? I know I already pulled it up during the demo, but what's your website? Are you on Twitter? Like, where can folks find you?
Yeah, lolli.com is our website, LOLLI.com. And then on Twitter, we're at TryLolli. A lot of memes over there if you guys are into that. And then, personal is Alex Adelman. And yeah, I mean, we're super active. DMs are always open. Customer support is always on. So if anyone needs anything, if you're looking for recommendations on things to buy, ways to earn, just let us know. We're an open book. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, Alex. If you're not already using Lolli, definitely check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes for you to click on if you want to. And we'll be talking to you again soon, Alex. Big fans. Thanks again.
Cool. Thanks, Zach.
See ya.